what you're looking at is a piece of what's meant to be one of the most complex codes in a manuscript on Earth. One of the best code breakers in the day had a crack at it. Apparently none of them could solve it, which is absolutely ludicrous, I can tell you now, especially with the pictures and stuff, especially the abstractions, if you want to define them. So the reason why no one could apparently crack it is because it contains not just some controversial explanations to it, but yeah, this is the secret they're guarding. Yeah, it's the key to our Genesis and stuff like that, and our progression, where it's going, even solving problems in our waning genetic code, like compared to some animals remain unchanging, you know, for millions of years. And yeah, I've been talking about a lot about this virus that's in our genetic code, and I'm putting forward that this virus is one of the things that's wearing down our genetic code slowly over time, and yeah, basically using us as hosts in its own evolution. But I'm not going to go into that in this one. I'm probably going to start off with, well, I'm going to use the Red Queen actually as an example. I'm going to tie this in because she does represent a force of nature in a way. A lot of, like, I don't know, philosophers have analysed, I don't know what you call them, they break it down, the whole psychological game behind this Alice in Wonderland trip. They break it down pretty well. So we're going to use the Red Queen, relate that to the Voynich, strangely enough, and then also go back to what I'm constantly using, referring back to, because it has to, we're looking at an ancient culture that shared a mind, basically like we all share a kind of similar mind today. I mean, we had different minds, and you can nearly call it a different species depending on how you define that. Yeah, we share the same basic form, but yeah, there's other things going down on the level of consciousness, molecular level, whatever, genetic level. There's all sorts of stuff going on there to categorize what is a human being, what is something possibly more or even subhuman, or retaining that form. I can tell already this might go into 2 videos. Yeah, so anyway, we're studying genetics, and the abstractions have to be similar. Like, there was a basis here in numerology, and we're following that basis. Even, you know, Da Vinci uses the same language here in alchemy. So there's a structure behind it all, and if it doesn't fit in with it, with what, you know, I would just basically discard it or leave it find what's going on, try and find other similarities elsewhere to decode it. But anyway, I guess I'll get to my point. So you have the Red Queen, who's got very masculine features. She's more like a dominant male figure, and you see the king is kind of this small kind of, you know, the fairer kind of sex in a way. Like you can see who's wearing the pants in the relationship. So yeah, he's the, I think in the Looking Glass he was the dreamer. He ended up being the dreamer. So yeah, so there's a reversed role there, and you wonder why this is. We know nature is not very human-hearted at all. These attributes are rather harsh. Yeah, seems rather dogmatic. So we're looking at the left hemisphere brain, and in a female, like so ideally I guess a female should have more of a more right brain attributes. Not that, you know, consciousness has anything to do with the sexes, but when you think, okay, you know, ideally, yeah, the divine feminine's always these days shown with like after the age of Isis and Osiris, it's always shown with a male. We're going to get into that more and showing where the species has gone. Okay, so relevance to the Red Queen, with the Red Queen to Voynich. So in the Voynich you got all female characters, and they find them, you see them in pools a lot, and they have certain, you know, there's an alchemy to this, and these pools, you wonder where the name gene pool comes from, but the whole, it's basically another genetic code describing human fertility, and if you look closely at all the, if you just, you know, look for yourself, Google Voynich Manuscript, you'll notice all the female figures in it are manly looking women. And just as I've been describing how Leonardo and all these other guys show like this separation, and basically this figure who emerges genetically occasionally in the race seems at times intervals has no genetic partner, is unique himself, and to cross his genetics with the regular human seems to be detrimental to the race, so they don't do it. There's more descriptions of that in here and in my other videos. I'll go over some more points surrounding that notion. But yeah, we're focusing on the female here. We'll try and stick with that. So yeah, so a unique deity with no genetic match in the gene pool. So you see here they're paired, some of them. Like for starters, you got like 8, 4 up here, I mean, if anyone can't see a relationship, you got 2, 4, 6, 8 paired. Then you got 4 that are like singles, so separate 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're also separated in the arches behind them, and the others have 2 names in each arch. So, I mean, come on, can you get anywhere with it? They just couldn't even reckon they couldn't begin to crack it over. It's a joke. So yeah, and it's interesting how you got like the beginning, like these 2 here, 2 of the 4 are somewhat connected. They have a join. They're holding hands still, but there is a separation there. With the 2 and ones, the beginning of the scene and the other side are completely, and it's the same with beginnings and endings at the Egyptian dynasty. You know, you see look at those eras, I mean, you know, the era, and then you can see that these unique deities are either formed, created like Horus, or eventually through, you know, correct breeding or a freak of occurrence in nature, eventually within their line, which seems to be timed with sometimes with major environmental effects, cosmic stuff going down. Okay, so where was I going with this? Hopefully I explained that well enough. Yeah, so you got the 4, it's, I don't know, you look at it straight away, and to me I knew, I guess because I've been looking at the other stuff, but it didn't take me long, you know, I don't know, anyway. So we're looking at, in the Voynich, there's, basically it's a lot of botanical stuff going on, like they're looking at the roots, mainly the roots of a lot of things, and like really weedy herbaceous plants. You think like over time, I think they're relating themselves like with consciousness. You know, there's a trippy thing with this, like how a plant can gain, you know, attributes like become poisonous to defend itself, even over time lose its own strength, maybe from being eaten too much. Maybe there's not enough, you know, of its own kind. But with the roots as well, I think they're saying that they have a root race to them. I think they are a split away race because they knew they were different. But they've kept, despite this genetic loss of female traits physically, they've kept the mental right side of the brain, the divine feminine awareness going. And I suspect it's because they are a root race, probably originally out of Egypt, some gypsy race. I think that some Romanic kind of influences there, possibly. Yeah, so they're relating, it's a weird one. Like, they're showing their consciousness in relationship to their genetics. And like you got 12 of them here. It's basically another version of the Last Supper, how I showed in the other videos. How each one showed pretty much a lack of, there was only even 4, you know, a few in the whole of the Last Supper that actually showed genetic traits. and Da Vinci got specific with those too. Okay, so look at the female here, showing how these represent base pairs, DNA code. This is her basically genetic code, what she's carrying. I showed how this represents Tutankhamun with the broken head. And I showed how at certain times this genetic autoimmune function occurs at the peak of one's own individual progression and maturity. So I might have to check out a bit of this autopsy modern day thing, just to back up my statement there. I'll play this if it plays, hopefully, maybe.
These bones, they're crowded, especially at the bases.
So it's basically like these bits, if you like, the bones are squished.
Yes,
together.
exactly. The toes appear more or less divergent.
They're sort of sticking out
Yeah.
at a bit of an angle.
Exactly.
I mean, what would we call this in sort of layman's terms?
Layman terms, we call it the clubfoot. The clubfoot, we can see it here.
Let me have a look. A club foot is a bone deformity that would have caused Tutt's foot to twist under his body. And what would that have meant for him? He would have had difficulty walking.
Yes,
He walked with a limp.
definitely was limping at that time heavily.
Right. But there are even more problems with his foot.
Next, he developed a new disease while in the adolescent age, let's say starting from the age of 13.
As soon as he hits his first age of maturity, the disease kicks in completely. But he was born with a club foot, so this thing about him being a rush job, no. It's obvious when someone's going to die. You can pretty much tell. They knew he didn't have long. It was full of malaria. He was going out. He wasn't going to last long. It's not like they were sitting around waiting for the precise moment of death to get started on some tomb. They had a plan from the beginning, pretty much, I'd say. That tomb, there's no mistakes in it. It's not rushed. They made a point of everything that forms that tomb. So yeah, in these progressing states, I guess in masonry, those degrees that you reach are relevant to age as well, and ideally teachings one receives, and it's part of the process. And what I'm describing with Horus, I don't know if I have a good picture of him. No, there's something anyway. He's on the left there. So, as I was describing Horus, his battle with Seti is like a rite of passage, and part of that process that an individual from that moment on, anyone in the game, I guess, has to go through this process. And it's it happens on the genetic level too. It's not just a spiritual in your head kind of thing. This is something that happens through your whole being. And this is where the original degrees and progression started from. And here you see within the genetic code the human beings, it exists, but it's something negative related to. On the other side here you see Sett, Seth, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, that's basically been my point, and yeah, I hope you can see some relevance in consciousness to human fertility and the fact that it doesn't always matter. You're not subject to the genetics you dealt with, like as we see here, like these women are well aware of the losing qualities as they showed with the plants, and they know time. Obviously they've been around a while, they're people, they know how some plants can degrade, some want to be eaten to progress themselves, some don't want to be eaten, some lose their nutrient qualities. So yeah, the natural degradation, but also in the future I'm going to be looking at more of this virus and things that are wearing down our genetics and in turn our consciousness, and I'm going to try and explore other ways for others to, I don't know, turn that around possibly. I mean, it's possible. I think that's why the hallucinogenic plants are important. But yeah, it's, unless you got a process there or a basis for it, to use it as a vehicle. See, they knew how it was done, they understood the process, but yeah, not everyone does, I guess. Okay, if I think of anything else, I'll make another video.